I don't believe in no gods or no form of religion. My way of living is based on pure reality. My way of living is based on pure reality. I'm on the warpath. I'm on the warpath. I'm on the warpath. I'm on the warpath. Wake your ass up.
Hidden Colors is a series of interviews laced together about the hidden history of black people and is easily the most racist thing I've ever seen in my entire life. It's full of conspiratorial theories, conspiracy theories if you will, without a single citation, and it epitomizes, we was kings and shit, space gods and shit, from fucking space and shit.
We were kings and shit. Space gods and shit. That sounds like jealousy to me, man, or some type of envy or something. But here's the proof.
This series presents information based in part on theory and conjecture. The producer's purpose is to suggest some possible explanations, but not necessarily the only ones, to the mysteries we will examine.
These dances, these masks, these strange rituals have meaning. They describe precisely the relationship between a remote African tribe and the heavens. This tribe believes all life comes from a distant dark star, invisible to the naked eye. Recently, modern science was able to find this star and confirm its existence. Now we must ask, how did a primitive people, lacking instruments of any kind, discover a dark star hidden deep in space? In Central Africa, among fortress-like cliffs on the southern edge of the Sahara Desert, live a people called the Dogon. 1,000 years ago, fleeing from warring tribes, the Dogon found refuge here. The Dogon have endured and preserved mysterious ancient knowledge. Knowledge of an invisible star and its movements through the heavens. The hum of the bull roar is believed to be the voice of the sacred star. It calls initiates to a ceremony high in the cliffs. Dating back to a time when the Western world was locked in the Dark Ages, this ritual has taken place year after year. During the ceremony, the full spectrum of Dogon knowledge is revealed and passes from generation to generation. A circle within a circle depicts Saturn and its rings, which can only be seen with a telescope. A large circle and 4 satellites. The planet Jupiter and its moons. Most remarkable, is this symbol. It represents the orbit of the Dogon star, a phenomenon deep in stellar space. Yet, no such orbiting star is visible from the Earth. It was not until this century that Western astronomers began to suspect its existence. A desert tribe called the Dogon, isolated in the African wilderness, may have identified a star invisible to the unaided eye. How is this possible? How could the Dogon possess this sophisticated astronomical information?
We were kings and shit, space gods and shit.
The study of the Dogon has lured men like Dr. Hans Guggenheim, an anthropologist from Harvard University. He has probed the relationship between the Dogon and their mysterious dark star.
In order to discover this mystery, the mystery of Dogon knowledge about the stars, we have to begin by looking at the inside of their granary. Because the Dogon link in their knowledge the science of growing grain and the understanding of the stars.
All ancient civilizations have needed knowledge of the heavens for the growing of grain. Just as ancient astronomers studied the positions of the sun, moon, and stars, Amendingi, the elder, climbs to a place among the rocks to observe the sun as it moves along a heelstone. He will determine the exact time when his people must sow the seed that will ensure their survival. This land is normally a desert. The rainy season is short. Planting must begin at precisely the right moment. The harvest which follows must last through the harsh months of drought. Life or death of the tribe depends on the accuracy of observation by men like Amendingi, the Dogon astronomer. As Amendingi studies the heavens, is it possible that he can reach beyond the visible universe? Is it possible that he can sense phenomena deep in space? The Hogan, the high priest of Eru, is the chief of Dogon religious knowledge. Selected more than 30 years ago by signs and prophecies, he lives a prisoner in a small temple compound. The Hogan is adored and provided for by his people, but cannot be touched by man or woman. He is the living repository of all that is known. His isolation from worldly needs and worldly concerns ensures that the sacred knowledge he keeps will remain pure. Should the Hogan be contaminated by human contact, he must be killed. Away from the clamor of village life, in caves and rock shelters, the teachings of the Hogan are renewed. Tribal legend tells us that beings called Numo descended from the sacred star and appeared before the Dogon ancestors. The Dogon were entrusted by the Numo with 366 symbols, given without meaning. The Dogon were charged with interpreting them and preserving the information for future generations. The symbols reveal an astonishing scope of astronomical knowledge, an infinite number of stars and spiraling worlds. After more than 5 years among the Dogon people, Dr. Guggenheim has gradually gained the confidence of the Dogon elders and acceptance into the inner circle of secret knowledge.
The Dogon believe the universe was born in a vast explosion, and as it opened up, everything that we know about and everything that the Dogon know about in the world came pouring out, and nothing was left except a shell. This empty shell became the star that they call the Pontolo, and that we call Sirius B.
In 1950, astronomers confirmed the existence of the Dogon star. At the United States Naval Observatory, Washington, D.C., Chief Astronomer Dr. Irving Lindenblad devoted years to the search for the dark star.
The Sirius system is a very interesting challenge observationally because it is very difficult to observe a star 10 seconds from such a bright object as Sirius A.
After the years of effort, Dr. Lindenblad finally succeeded in taking this photograph of Sirius B and its giant companion. The Dogon possess even more startling information about the star they hold sacred. They say that when it gave forth all its energy, it collapsed in upon itself, becoming incredibly dense and so heavy that all the earthly beings combined cannot lift it. The San Fernando Observatory, Sylmar, California. Dr. Gary Chapman is an astronomer specializing in the physical characteristics of stars. By splitting the light collected from a distant star into colored bands, its physical characteristics can be analyzed.
The Sirius B is fairly normal in the surface layers, but we do rely on the calculations to tell us that the interior is essentially out of nuclear fuel. It's a dead star. We know from modern calculations that it has a very, very high density, has a density about 5 million times that of water, and if you were to be on the surface of Sirius B right now, you'd be crushed very, very flat because the surface gravity is about 100 million times that of the Earth.
The symbol is explained. The knowledge preserved in rituals through the centuries has been confirmed. Beyond the Dogon knowledge of the dark star, the symbols reveal more information about the celestial universe. They correctly place the Earth and our solar system within the Milky Way and state correctly that the massive cluster of stars is far more distant than the planets. The understanding of astronomical movements led the Dogon to investigate the human anatomy. They discovered the circulation of blood in the body long before it was discovered by the English physician William Harvey in the 17th century. These symbols and the knowledge they hold are the legacy of the mysterious Numos, the messengers from the dark star. Many cultures claim their knowledge was given them by godlike beings descended from the heavens. But the Dogons insist their gods descended from one star in particular, which they're able to identify and describe in detail. Does other evidence exist of this encounter between gods and men?
We were kings and shit. Space gods and shit.
In 1937, French anthropologists shot this rare film of the Dogon. They found the people in a frenzy of preparation for a huge ceremony. The scientists were told the funeral of an important man would soon take place. But all this was an elaborate deception designed to protect their secret knowledge. The anthropologists counted themselves fortunate to have the opportunity to observe the making of ritual masks representing the panoply of Dogon spirits. It would be years before the scientists would understand their true meaning. giant ritual which the anthropologist witnessed was not a funeral at all. It was the Siggy. Occurring every 60 years, the Siggy is the most important ceremony in Dogon life. The Siggy is an event relating directly to the sacred star. The Siggy marks the completion of an orbit, the time when Earth, the giant Sirius, and the sacred star are directly aligned. The moment when the Dogon and their star are closest. For Western science to determine the orbit of the Dogon star required calculations based on decades of astronomical observations. Minute shifts in the position of the giant Sirius led astronomers to suspect the gravitational influence of an unseen companion. When computer studies of the data were complete, they verified that a small star orbited Sirius every 60 years, exactly as the Dogon claimed.
The interesting thing is that in their vision of the stellar universe, they arrived at the conclusion that it was the smallest invisible star that was at the center of the universe, that moved the universe and that held Sirius, the Siggy Tolo, in place and determined its course in an elliptical way which they have painted and graphed on the walls of their caves, an ellipse which has been borne out by Western observations.
More than 4 decades have passed since the last Siggy. Only the oldest among the Dogon recall it, the greatest experience of their lives. It is from the citadel shrine of Yuga Dugaru that the order to commence the next Siggy will come. Here live the only men who claim they have actually seen the alignment between the Earth and the distant star. Elders of a secret society, they are the venerated guardians of the shrine, where they say a place in the cliff begins to glow when it is time for the Siggy ritual. What mysteries inspire these people to devote their lives to the keeping of a shrine, to the knotting of a rope measuring the time until a ceremony they will not live to see? In sanctuaries hidden among the cliffs, there is evidence of the antiquity of the Siggy ritual. The mask, called Na, dates from an early observation of the dark star. It is believed by scientists to be more than 300 years old. Masks for future rituals will be modeled on this example.
So what conclusion does one come to from the Dogon knowledge of the star Sirius? I feel there are one of 3 possibilities. A, that they have supernatural knowledge or extrasensory perception. B, perhaps they've been visited by creatures from outer space. Or C, that the whole thing is coincidence. And I must say, as a professional astronomer, I strongly side with item C, that it's coincidence.
How they managed to calculate this, we don't know. It is a mystery that we have been unable to solve and up to now, and that the Dogon are not going to tell.
We were kings and shit. Space gods and shit.
Alright, so let's tally up some facts here from the Dogon tribe. Alright, so you got this Dogon tribe that's been around for a while say that they come from outer space from a star called Sirius B. And they knew of this star before we can visually see it with our telescopes and things like that, meaning modern Western technology was able to catch up to what they already knew. Not only did they know about where the location of this particular star was, they knew of the rotation and was able to prove it, that it was on a 60-year cycle. They also knew about the fact that the star was a dead star and that it was collapsed and really dense. They knew of the Milky Way and the distance between the Milky Way and most of the planets within our solar system. They knew about all the planets in our solar system, the rings around Saturn, the moons around Jupiter, and things like that before our astronomers was able to confirm this information. After hearing all that about this tribe, you got the two people who were there trying to investigate this information, the anthropologist and the astronomer. And the astronomer asks himself these three questions. He says, not three questions. He makes these three statements in the sense that he's saying that one of three things is happening with this tribe. Either they are superhuman. Okay? He said either they superhuman because they have superhuman intelligence or superhuman ability to see, and they can literally see the star. Or some aliens came down and told them this information, or it's pure coincidence. And his conclusion is it's coincidence. So what confuses me is he's willing to believe that these people have superhuman ability, but they're not from the planet that they say they are. He's willing to believe that other aliens came down to speak to them, but they not the aliens that came from this particular star. And then the anthropologist, he just was baffled. How do they know? He asked. I don't know. Couldn't it be that they just telling the truth, that that's where they come from? How else would they know this information? If you can't see it, and none of us had the technology to see it, and for all intents and purposes, if they are human beings, they couldn't have superhuman ability, right? They're not different than us. Because if that was the case, then you can determine that by giving them a physical. You know what I'm saying? They don't have superhuman ability now. Why would they have had it back then? So that's how they don't have superhuman ability. Okay. And then why would you assume that aliens can come from another planet, visit our planet, give this information to these people, and then fucking leave? Why would they do that? Why would they give that information to anybody else? So it just don't make no sense. The only thing that makes actual sense is these people are telling the truth. They are from where they say they are from. But these white men can't accept that. Even after all this evidence, they can't seem to swallow that. What is that? Why is that? Is it because they can't escape and deal with the reality that
we were kings and shit, space gods and shit?
Okay, I figured you would like to hear this information from somebody from the white persuasion, so I wanted to get information from a white perspective. Figured Mr. Spock and In Search Of was a pretty good example. It definitely shows and proves the space connection or the universal connection that we have. Now, I understand how you could feel about that as a white man. Here's an example of two other white men dealing with the same cognitive dissonance that you're dealing with right now.
If any of you have ever wondered why, on some of my videos, I sometimes use the word Negro instead of the word black, this video shall answer that question for you.
In 1997, the Art Bell radio program aired an interview with Richard Hogan regarding the recent discovery of a new room under the pyramids through a secret shaft under the Sphinx. Inside the room was a statue of a black man. This information was suppressed but leaked out through the testimony of an eyewitness guard. Following are excerpts from this program. Notice that the Europeans wrestle with their denial of the black African truth, even in the face of new undeniable evidence.
What this guard reported was that on October 20th, Farouk El-Baz, the same man who picked the Apollo landing sites on the moon according to the Orion-Sirius connection,
yes,
and two English-speaking Europeans carrying a large aluminum case entered the Great Pyramid that morning for 3 hours on October 20th. They proceeded to put a robot up the shaft and a camera with a fiber optic connection under the crack in the door. They proceeded to look through to find what was inside a chamber, and there is a chamber back there, according to the story, which is about 3 meters by 2.5 meters in size.
yes,
There is a statue in this room.
a statue,
Of a black man.
a black man.
seated, looking up the shaft toward the star Sirius at the meridian crossing. Wow. And there is more.
There's more.
Isn't this getting to be interesting?
It is, yes. Now, let's define black. 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 Here's a fax from Jerry in Clovis, California. My teacher, a colleague, told me the Egyptians were very dark Caucasians. I guess this new discovery proves it to be true. They were not black. Told me the Egyptians were very dark Caucasians. I guess this new discovery proves it to be true. They were not black. So, do you want to stick with your description of a black man, or would this be a dark-skinned Egyptian, or is that too close a call to make?
No, the description was a black man.
A black man.
Yeah, yeah. And what they found is something that is so politically incorrect.
I know.
That's what I found so striking. When my source came back, and the first thing he said, they found a statue of a black man. From the tone in his voice, he was shocked.
Sure.
And I was kind of intrigued that he was shocked because, frankly, if you look at the Sphinx, it's a black man. It's a black man. The tone in his voice, he was shocked.
Sure.
And I was kind of intrigued that he was shocked because, frankly, if you look at the Sphinx, it's a black man.
We were kings and shit. Space gods and shit.
Now that's the one I like. You know what I'm saying? Did you hear the cognitive dissonance as it, manifests itself as those two white brothers start talking to each other? The first white brother told him about the politically incorrect information that he found out by the security guard who saw who was a witness to the discovery that they found in the, I think it was in the shaft of the Great Pyramid. And they put the little camera up in there and they see a statue of a black man, right? And where was he looking? Up at the meridian crust towards Ceres A and B, because they're close to each other. So in that area, or on Orion's belt, that's where it is. That's where it's supposed to be located. You know what I'm saying? In the stars, in the cluster of stars up there, right? So go back and listen to the white dude tell his friend, and then he immediately said, you heard the first part with the cognitive dissonance. That's what was there. He said, well, okay, let's define black. Okay, let's define that, because maybe you talk about something else, because maybe you talk about the dark-skinned Egyptians who wasn't really black. They were just dark-skinned Caucasians, right? And motherfuckers believe that. If you look at this Today Show bullshit recently with Queen Nefertiti being perpetrated as a white woman, basically. And then, so that's obvious. That was blatantly obvious that this motherfucker was trying to convince the other white dude to change his mind and not say black, but to say dark-skinned Caucasian. But the brother was like, the other white dude was like, nah, that's not what he said. He said a black man. So, okay. So he goes on. Now, you got to listen to this other part. It's really, you got to pay attention. Because right after that, the same white dude was explaining again. And he went to mention the term black man again. And then the other white guy said, oh. You know what I'm saying? Listen, he said, oh. Like he was trying to pause him from continuously saying black man. Right? Then that's the third. That's the second. That's the second cognitive dissonance example. Then he says, he said how politically incorrect it was. And then he said the Sphinx was a black man. And the other guy just didn't seem to like that. He did not want to keep having that guy say that. But the fact that they both felt that this was negative information, that's why they called it politically incorrect, shows that they're dealing with cognitive dissonance. I mean, ultimately, you can't change the history. It's there. No matter how far down you dig, you're going to find us. Okay? And then just deal with that. That don't separate you from the history. You're just not going to be the originator. You're not the original man. It's okay. Accept that reality. You know? I don't know what else to tell you, brother. Just remember.
We were kings and shit. Space gods and shit.
African people established the first dynasties in Asia. When you look at old paintings of Eastern Asian people, you can see the African ancestry in their features.
You're going to find African people throughout the Far East. Very dark complexion, very curly hair, wide nose, thick lip. You will also find those with straight hair. You will find those with a more aquiline nose.
You sure it wasn't Asians? Sure it wasn't Asians who started the first Asian dynasties? You sure? You showed one picture of a disheveled Indonesian lady in her 50s, and I'm supposed to believe you. Yeah, that's compelling evidence, bro. Just right up there. Just, oh shit, and you're interpreting art? Oh my God. Your interpretation of art is the only interpretation? Jesus, Louises, Jesus.
Come on, bro, you gotta let it go. You're getting all bent out of shape for nothing. We sure. It's not the Asians you think it was. It's Asians, though. They were just black Asians. You know what I'm saying? They were African people living in the Asian region of the continent called Eurasia. So you can look at it whatever way you want. They are Asians. They're just not the Asians that you believe that they are. You know what? I'm going to let this Asian brother tell you. How about this Chinese brother let you know?
However, there is something that could settle this debate of where the Chinese come from once and for all. I'm meeting Professor Jin Li, one of China's leading geneticists. Recently, he led a project that set out to prove that the Chinese evolved independently from everyone else, from Homo erectus, here in China.
Before the project started, I was hoping that I could identify or could be able to find evidence that support independent origin of Chinese in China, because I'm a Chinese and came from China, and through the education process, I always believed that there's something special about Chinese.
He singled out a male genetic marker which only appeared about 80,000 years ago in Africa. So any man who carries that marker must have recent African ancestors and can't be descended from the more ancient Asian Homo erectus. Jin took DNA from over 160 ethnic groups around East Asia. Over 12,000 samples. And so, what did you find?
We did not see any, even one single individual that could be considered as the descendant of the Homo erectus in China. Rather, everybody was a descendant of our ancestors from Africa.
The result couldn't have been any clearer.
And how did that make you feel as a Chinese person?
After I saw the evidences that we generate in my laboratory, I think we should all be happy with that, because after all, modern humans from different part of the world are not so different from each other, and we are very close relatives.
It's great, thank you.
We were kings and shit. Space gods and shit. Wake your ass up.
When people talk about Leonardo da Vinci, the only question that I have as it relates to Leonardo da Vinci is, who was his teacher? Who taught Leonardo da Vinci brain anatomy? Who taught him about the airplane? Who taught him this? Tell me, who was his teacher? They can't tell you who the teacher is, because if they told you who the teacher is, they would have to tell you they were black.
What are you even talking about? Nobody knows because nobody cares. No one cares who the innovator's teacher was. They only care about the innovation and the innovator.
Reginald, I disagree.
The players wear shoes called Maori Gators. Those are some of the most popular shoes around among players, the Maori Gators. The word Maori is a variation of the word Moorish. So we have to know all this stuff. All that is our stuff. That's African stuff.
Oh, is it? God damn. What a great argument. It's all Africa stuff. Wow. You've done it, bro. You've shown me that the black race is the master race.
Your words, not his. If you believe we the master race because most things are African, then believe what you want. We never said that. But it's African stuff, bro. You gotta, come on. Stop getting so emotional. Do your research and find out if these things that people are saying is true. I heard you say earlier that nobody's giving you no citations. Don't nobody owe you no damn citations. Do your own research. It's African stuff, though.
Okay, Van Gogh and all of these types of guys, you will see a lot of their art was inspired by the so-called dark art of West Africa. There has been studies that have put the pieces of Van Gogh and others up next to pieces of traditional African cultural art in West Africa. That art that would be considered a negative, underworldly, dark, and demonic. But the great European artists copied what was considered by Europe some of the lowest and most primitive forms of artwork that went on to be considered some of the most successful by them.
How is that a study? I don't understand what the fuck that guy was saying at the end, and I know that the filmmaker believes everything in this, and he has the opportunity to put his argument in the best possible light because he's edited this entire movie. So why he would leave this rambling bullshit inside of it is beyond me. He must be retarded or inept or just fucking full of shit and doesn't actually believe any of this shit. I don't know.
Kind of like you have an opportunity to put your argument in the best light, but I don't know. I never heard you say anything yet. You haven't said anything to counter any of the arguments that the people are making in the video. I mean, you never said that that's what your video was about. I assume your video is merely sarcasm commentary. You know what I'm saying? You just want to say smart aleck shit and then, laugh at yourself and shit and think that, okay, then that's enough. You know what I'm saying? But then you are requiring some sort of proof and evidence and citations and all types of shit from these people. Where's your shit? Where's your knowledge, yo? What passage of the book do you want us to read? Tell us where the history truly is, since this shit is not, valid enough for you. Come on with this bullshit.
Who's Beethoven? Beethoven was Thoven Bey. He was a Moor.
His mother was a Moor. Yes. And when he went deaf, that melanin kicked in. The inner eye kicked in.
Melanin? What the fuck does that have to do with anything?
Oh boy. I'm glad you asked that question. Here you go.
Melanin is a neurochemical that is produced in part through the pituitary and the pineal gland. They both play a central role in the production of melanin, which is ultimately responsible for the color that we have in our skin. Now, historically, it had always been thought that melanin played a significant role in the intellectual propensity of African people. For example, when you study some of the Greek writings on melanin or the color of Africans, many of the Greek philosophers believed that melanin played some sort of a role in how Africans had been able to create and develop some of the sciences that they had come to be known for. So melanin was always considered an intellectual sort of a chemical.
The pineal gland, which produces melanin, it's shaped like a pine cone. And the origin of the word pineal literally means resembling a pine cone. Now, in ancient symbolisms, the pine cone has always been represented because people knew the importance of the pineal gland as it related to melanin and the universe.
Melanin is a molecule. And the concept of melanin is, it is black in its nature. And we find it in the cosmos, we find it in the heavens, we find it in water, we find it in land, we find it in everything that exists.
the sperm of the male and the egg of the woman, they're both layered with melanin, so that when the sperm penetrates the egg, there is a melanin explosion. And that melanin helps to formulate the fetus within that egg. And that fetus is literally coated with the melanin substance. And that melanin substance then goes on to form the brain and the central nervous system. So every human being begins with a melanin explosion.
Melanin is an intelligence. It's an intelligence because it is the dynamic, the primary dynamic in every part of the cell. It's a primary dynamic in the core of the human being as well as to the surface of the human being. Its intelligence is responsible for the forming of the nervous system. Every part of the nervous system has these little black dots all through it, which essentially carry information.
So melanin, from a physical standpoint, is that substance that accounts for what black people refer to as soul. We move differently, we walk differently, we talk differently, because we have access to a different form of energy than other folk.
Not only is melanin a pigment, which is so obvious, but melanin as an intelligence is a communications module that essentially broadcasts as well as receives information by way of light and sound frequency signatures.
Scholars and scientists have been having conferences about melanin, to my awareness, at least since the 1920s.
The pineal glands of most of our white brothers and sisters are calcified, and so they make less melanin. And that comes from the historical relationship to what we call the Permian Ice Age, that 10,000 years of glacial freezing that happened in Europe after the Africans who were the Grimaldi moved up there. And so it became the survival of the fittest. Who was able to adapt could survive. Who wasn't able to adapt died. So those people who were able to get rid of their melanin was able to survive. Those who could not get rid of the melanin, they died.
These scientists said that the pineal gland, they refer to the pineal gland as a vestigial organ, that is a calcified gland within the body that served no purpose, as if the creator would create something that you didn't need. And it was only after the Vietnam War, in the late 60s and early 70s, that they began to rewrite their interpretation of the pineal gland. The reason for that was that a large number of African Americans fought and died during the Vietnam War. And whenever a soldier dies, there's an autopsy that's performed before their body is sent back to Dover Air Force Base. And what they discovered, what these physicians discovered, is that when they performed the autopsies, the 75 to 80% of the African American soldiers had a large functioning pineal gland. The pineal gland is normally about the size of your thumb. So it was not a vestigial organ in 70 to 80% of African Americans, but it is a calcified organ in 75 to 80% of people with European ancestry. So they began to reevaluate the pineal gland. They began to reevaluate melanin.
The sun. It lights our world, heats our planet, controls our weather. The sun's gravity even keeps Earth from drifting off into the icy cold depths of space.
The key to the sun is its size. The sun is almost 1,000 times more massive than all the planets combined. It could hold 1,000,000 Earths inside.
The sun has been worshipped as a god throughout much of recorded history. The ancient Egyptians all saw the sun as a deity. The Egyptians named him Ra. The sun's warmth and light, he realized, came from converting matter directly into energy through atomic reactions. The sun forms the center of our solar system and contains more than 99% of its mass. Our home star's diameter is 864,900 miles, 109 times greater than that of the Earth. Because of its immense size, the sun has a powerful gravitational force, powerful enough to hold 8 planets, more than 200 moons, and countless other celestial bodies in orbit. One of those planets is our own home, planet Earth, 92 million miles from the sun. The star we orbit, the star that forms the center of our solar system, is more than 4.5 billion years old. It has no solid surface. Rather, it is comprised of gases, mainly hydrogen, oxygen, and carbon, forming a single new element, releasing huge amounts of excess energy.
Carbon is an amazing element.
Carbon is literally found everywhere on Earth.
In a natural form, it can be as hard as a diamond, or as soft as the graphite on our pens.
It's found in the farthest reaches of the atmosphere, to the deepest parts of the soils and rocks in the Earth, to our own bodies.
So basically, carbon is the building block of life on Earth.
Carbon can be present in either an organic form or an inorganic form. Carbon is found in its organic form when it's part of living organisms or the remains of living organisms.
The concentration of carbon determines the color black. The higher the concentration of carbon, the greater the color black would express. Each mineral on the planet, iron has 12,000 electrons per atom, calcium has 9,000, opium has the specific amount, and so it goes through the whole ramification of life. 142 minerals expresses themselves in a different way because that is necessary. If something is made by Mother Nature, one could easily use the common sense and see where this stuff is natural, is complete. Now we go back to the question of melanin. Wouldn't it be intelligent to ask one of the promoters of melanin, what is the electromagnetic structure of melanin? What is the amount of electrons per atom that represent this thing we call melanin?
Why, from the grand scheme of things, is pigment something that you want to have in skin, and why is it important? What is most important in the view of natural selection is reproductive success. Well, melanin, as it turns out, is an extremely effective substance at essentially absorbing and reflecting harmful ultraviolet radiation. When we started migrating out of Africa and occupying different areas of the globe, we moved away from the equator, away from higher exposure of sunlight, and as a consequence, there were different pressures that were being acted upon human populations. At some point, after moving out of Africa, there was a mutation.
Changes in genes are called genetic mutations. Genetic mutations occur when a cell's DNA instructions are changed, either as a result of external events, such as exposure to chemicals or radiation, or by mistakes made in copying DNA during cell reproduction.
Here's what's happening. The ultraviolet rays in sunlight are actually able to kill cells in your skin. So the sun hits your skin and kills some of the cells in it. Your immune system detects the dead cells. To clean them up, your immune system increases blood flow to the area. That's why your skin gets red and warm when you have a sunburn. It's all the blood that's flowing to the area for the immune system.
Sunburn is related to your skin type and ultraviolet radiation from the sun. Sunburning is an effect of sunlight and sun exposure. The more you're in the sun, the more likely you are to burn. Certain skin types are more likely to burn than others. Depends on your genetic makeup and your basic skin type. And over our lifetime, this adds up to promote skin cancer and aging. The body is telling you when you sunburn, you see that redness, you need to get indoors or out of the sun. If you stay in the sun, you're just going to have more damage and promote more aging prematurely, and most likely promote skin cancer later on down the road.
Though skin cancer is the most common cancer in America, it doesn't stop people from getting their burn on.
Sometimes when I go to the gym, I smell hot dogs and hamburgers. But the way this chick is looking, I can smell flesh. She is not worried about cancer, SPF 50, whatever. She wants to shine. She is glowing like the sun. Look at those globes.
I think when you start to assemble a leather product, whether that be a shoe or a saddle or a tension, this is suddenly turned into a $20,000 pyramid here.
A lot of people don't realize that UVA rays penetrate glass, they penetrate clouds on a cloudy day, and they're present at a consistently high level throughout the year.
Let's go after this now. Do you know in Oakland Tribune, January 23rd, 2000, they got this test going on, wanted men and women with dark pigmented skin to participate in a clinical study. You could earn $50 to $175 in only 1 to 3 hours. Toll-free number. I mean, brothers and sisters, look at what's going on. We're going into the labs. They taking our melanin to make melanin pills so they can survive. I mean, you really got to look at white folks now. Tablets contains the ingredients your skin cells need to produce in bold black letters melanin. The more melanin you have, the darker your tan. Contains no dyes or artificial colors. Take 1 or more tablets daily depending on how tan you want to be. Toll-free number. I mean, this is white folks taking melanin pills. That's why they don't like us, because Raw has kissed us. The only thing they can do is put Raw on their book here. Now, Los Angeles Times came out and said, cancer rate rises. Melanoma, a disease of the Sun Belt. A savage wrote it. Is something activated in your mind when I say that? I mean, that's his name, Savage. They go on to say, as millions, they forgot to say, white Americans migrate from the cold and snowy climates of the north and Sun Belt states of the south and the west, their doctors, they seeing a steady and distressing rise in often fatal form of skin cancer. This is just one more reason for light-skinned Caucasian parents to bestow the gift of a darker complexion on their offspring. That's why you see all these integrated marriages and things pushing on the TV, pushing black and white relationships now. They need melanin to survive. As it was in the beginning, so shall it be in the ending.
So now, if electricity is produced by copper and carbon, the friction of copper and carbon, then where do we go in the human body and find the organ that produces electricity? We find that it's the brain. The brain is the center of motor. The nervous system is the conduit that carries the electricity to various points of the body to cause motion. Now, should we ask, what is the composition of the brain? No. It is made up of what? Carbon and copper. All you find is copper and carbon. No melanin. The presence of what? Carbon. Thank you.
Hey, so let me go ahead and add this little addendum to the melanin part of this particular bill. I'm not going to sit here and act like I have a full grasp and understanding of melanin, but that's why I post those 2 particular videos. I post the first video so you can see the racial perspective to melanin and how that has been understood even by white intellectuals and scientists and stuff like that. The second video kind of leads into a lot of the natural perspective in reference to how melanin is produced and created and this relationship between melanin and the sun and carbon as an element and all this other stuff. So it may not, be something you can grasp. You seem a little lost with information, so I'm not going to assume that you're going to get it and understand it, especially if you're already coming in it from a negative perspective, not believing in the stuff that we're saying. But one thing you'll realize, and I will give you some information that you can check out, a lot of black intellectuals who cover this particular topic, what you will notice is that white intellectuals don't like to cover this topic. And I think that speaks volumes. You know what I'm saying? So if you want to really get a deeper understanding of melanin, then look it up. But this tells you that, melanin ultimately has a deep connection to the sun and a relationship to the sun. And we are children of the sun. We feed off of the sun. You know what I'm saying? It's the center of our solar system, and everything in the solar system eats off of that energy. You know what I'm saying? And whoever can draw in that energy and use it to its full potential, you know what I'm saying, is deeply connected to the sun and the universe and our planet. in a deep way.
We were kings and shit, space gods and shit.
We know for a fact that the first Umayyad and Abbasid dynasty, we know they were black. We know that they were what we call Arabs, but there's no such thing as an Arab. An Arab, I call them Afrabs. Because to be an Arab, you must be black. That's what makes you an Arab, that you're black.
Yep, no such thing as Arabs. It's not like there's a country with Arab in the name.
Oh boy, just because Arab is in the name of a country or a region doesn't mean that they're actual Arab people. You understand what I'm saying? Matter of fact, let's read the definition. That might give you a little bit better understanding. That's always good, right? Read the definition. It's a real simple definition. It's a member of a Semitic people originally from the Arabian Peninsula, neighboring territories inhabiting much of the Middle East and North Africa. Or the adjective, which means relating to Arab or people of Arabia. So basically why he's saying there's no Arabs mean they just black people from that region, from the area, from the northern part of Africa all the way through the Middle East. Those people call that the Arabian Peninsula. So some people adopted the name to title themselves as Arabs to distinguish themselves from the rest of the people of other regions like the rest of Africa, the rest of the Asian region, which the Middle East covers and stuff like that. But they're really no Arab people. It's just a name and a title given or used by a people of a particular region to differentiate themselves from everybody else. Hope that made sense to you. Continue.
There's an excessive use of the words we and us and our in this movie throughout it. And I just want to remind everyone that these people haven't done shit. They haven't done anything but make this dumbass fucking film. Well, what do you mean? The Egyptians built the pyramids. You didn't. You live now in the 21st century. There's no possible way that you could have built them. There's no possible fucking way that you could have done all this crazy Moorish science or whatever the fuck that you're espousing, because you didn't live then. You live now. You didn't build any kind of civilization. You live in one. What the fuck are you even on about?
Oh man, this dude right here. Look, you don't have to remind nobody of anything that nobody never said. Nobody never said that they created any of this stuff. Yeah, we gonna say we, because we mean we, motherfucker. We, my people, my ancestors. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, that's we. It's still we. Nobody said that we had to have a hand in the development and the building of these particular things that we're talking about. We're just saying that we are connected to it. You are too, if you want to own up to it. But I mean, that's up to you, bro. But it's definitely connected to we. You don't like that, do you? I wonder why you don't like that.
They brought Ziriab into Spain, and he brought in a chordophone known as the lute, L'-O-U-D. We call it lute, L-U-T-E. It's a chordophone. And it has 4 chords. And, you know, the hormones of the body, the humors, Africans would heal people when you had clogs in your liquid systems, okay? Whether it was your mucus or whether it was your hormones, whether it was your phlegm, whether it was your blood. Whatever was clogged up, what they do is that they would put this chordophone over your body and they would strum, right? And in strumming, the vibration of the string would open up whatever was clogged, okay? Ziriab, in his brilliance, added a 5th string. And this 5th string was for plasma, which is invisible liquid, which is the origin of the universe. And this just healed your entire system, your entire body.
Oh, black people's is magic. My God, I guess that's why they call it black magic.
I guess so. That might be why they call it black magic. Look it up. Look it up. We definitely magical motherfuckers, though. Since the beginning, motherfucker. Check it. Now, magic isn't really magic, bro. You know what I'm saying? See, magic is illusionary, meaning the perception of magic is that somehow, you know, something is born out of nothing. That you can create something out of nothing and that you can bring things out of nothingness and all that type of shit. That's magic, but that's false. You know what I'm saying? Magic is truly science. That's all it is. You know what I'm saying? Things that people don't understand, they call it magic. You know what I'm saying? But if you want to do the knowledge to magic, I tell you, you know, where you need to start. You go to ancient Egypt, King Solomon, and, you know, things like that. That'll get you started. You know what I'm saying? And then you'll see. That's all African stuff. You know what I'm saying? That's black shit. You know what I'm saying? And so, we magical motherfuckers, yo. You know? Magic.
Africans have been going back and forth engaging in cultural trade and other forms of economic trade way before there was any mention of anyone by the name of Columbus. So his voyage was nothing new for a human being to make. It may have been new for a European, but it was definitely not new for the African. We had already been doing it. In fact, there's maps in some of the museums around the world that show how those involved in the maritime trade would actually get from West Africa.
No, they didn't. That's not even up for debate. That didn't happen. You're full of shit. You're full of shit. Do you have any evidence of this? Because, like, I would love to see it. I think everyone would love to see the evidence that Africans traded with the Americans before Columbus. I think the scientific and archaeological community would fucking love it if that was true. A lot of book writers, a lot of textbook writers are going to make a bunch of money because they got to rewrite all their textbooks. You have to have the correct edition.
You seem pretty sure about that information. I mean, that's the surest I ever seen you. You still ain't bring no fucking proof, though. I ain't hear no rational reason or understanding on why you believe it's not true or to dispute the evidence by offering some counter evidence that is contrary to what they're saying. I mean, that's your answer? Nah, it's not true. Absolutely not. Like, you know. You sure? I hate to do it to you, bro. Check it out.
But if you could buy an African for $300 and then pay somebody for 20 years $300 a year, which would you do? You'd buy someone one time for $300. But that's going to stifle capitalism, because what's going to happen is there's going to be no competition, because what European is going to compete for a job that they could buy an African to do? So the North said, look, enslavement of African people is stifling capitalism. And so the South said, so what you want me to do? They said, well, you got to free your Africans. I said, free my Africans? Well, how am I going to get my money? North said, don't worry about it, we'll take care of it. They said, we don't trust you. No, we're not going to sell our, we are not going to stop enslaving Africans. We're just not going to do it. North said, but you have to, because it's going to stifle capitalism, and we're going to choke with overproduction without an ability to sell what we're, South said, but that's not my problem, because I can sell my raw materials any place in the world. The North said, but then what would happen to us? We have factories. The South said, well, that sounds like a personal problem to me. I don't care what happens to you. North said, but you can't do that. South said, we're going to do that. We're not freeing Africans. They said, you got to free Africa. We're not freeing. In fact, the South said to the North, you know, I'm tired of talking to you. I'm going to secede. I'm not even going to talk to you no more. In fact, I'm not even part of what your colonies are anymore. North said, you can't do that. South said, watch. That started the Civil War.
I miss the part of American history where two geographical regions became sentient and started talking to each other and had economic disputes. That's fucking crazy, dude. How did that happen?
Alright, so we ain't gonna play these bullshit semantic games with words and shit. Sentient. Did he say that the motherfucking North and South became sentient? Or was he talking about the fact that the North and South were two different regions and the people of these regions were having these conversations? Are you saying that these conversations about economics never happened? You see what I'm saying? See, but that's what happens, bro. I understand. That's what happens. See, when a motherfucker don't have any valid information or no power, you know what I'm saying? Power meaning no knowledge to back up what you're saying, then you get just sarcastic and say all types of trivial shit just to be, you know, I guess, an ass. Congratulations, you won. You an ass. But, again, you are incorrect, brother. But let's hurry up and finish this shit because you're annoying me.
Racism, as I understand it, is a global system for the genetic survival of the global white minority population.
She's on to us! Oh, the global white conspiracy? Are you fucking kidding me? I miss those meetings. I don't get invited to the global white conspiracy meetings. I wish I did. Maybe I would fucking move out of my parents' house at some point in time in the near future if I was, you know, able to attend. There's a lot of interesting fashion choices in this film too. Like, whatever this guy's wearing on his neck, this guy's wearing like a giant rock on his wrist, whatever the fuck this lady's wearing. It's just, you know, they go out there. Oh yeah, and this guy's sweater. Now, if you're not aware, I'm not saying he's a rapist. I'm just saying he dresses like one. So from now on, I will be referring to him as Rape Sweater. All right, Rape Sweater.
Yeah, we've been on to your ass. You're right. Yeah, the global white conspiracy. Absolutely. That's exactly what we're talking about. That's real shit. And you're not going to get invited to the meetings because, see, you dumb. You know what I'm saying? They know this knowledge and this information that we're telling you and that the Hidden Colors people is telling us. They know this. The motherfuckers at the global white conspiracy meeting, they know this shit. That's why they at the meeting, because they know this shit is true and they trying to keep this information hidden. You're not part of the meetings because you're not privy and you're not part of the clique. You know what I'm saying? They view you the same way they view me, a piece of shit. You know what I'm saying? So you're not white in that perspective. You white in complexion, but you're not white like they are. They don't consider you part of the clique. So you won't get invited to the meetings. Now you do have some privilege if you knew how to use it. Maybe you might get out your mother's house or something like that. And as far as what my brothers and sisters are wearing, don't worry about it, motherfucker. They ain't wearing it for you. You don't need to know it. If you don't know what it's about, And that's what it's about. Nothing to you. Nothing. Don't worry about it.
As the system of racism and white supremacy moves on, the system is going to have black men wearing dresses. Now, to hear that in the 70s, people said, oh, this is way out. And here we are. Do you see, there's some black pediatricians who are saying we are developing epidemic levels of the effeminization of young black males.
Yep, she just alluded to homosexuality being part of white supremacy. It's good. And epidemic levels, really? Doctors are saying this. Men of science. Oh, okay, sure.
Motherfucker, epidemic levels, that's how we feel. We got our own intellectuals, our own scientists, our own psychologists and stuff like that who study these things. And, you know, initially when she said that, and, you know, you made your little comment, I was thinking like, damn, I don't remember hearing any studies or nothing on that. So I said, let me look it up. And they there. There are studies on that, but only by black intellectuals. You know what I'm saying? So you probably wouldn't see this information. You wouldn't know where to look, you know, or you wouldn't care to look in those places. You know what I'm saying? Because you look up to a different perspective of people. You know what I'm saying? But it's true. You know, whether it's true that it's at epidemic levels or not, I mean, that's a theory. That's people, it's a theory. Somebody has a theory and somebody's trying to prove said theory. You know, that's what's happening. But that shit is really happening. And as far as, you know, men of science and all that shit, she's a woman of science. You know what I'm saying? And this is her field of study. So yes, you know, and it is a white supremacist construct. It's something that they created. You know what I'm saying? But they're not just effeminizing black males. You know what I'm saying? They're feminizing all males.
Sure. Because first of all, IQ is so culture-based. I mean, IQ doesn't exist. And the evidence of that is just look around you. Because if that's the case, Europeans ain't doing that great either. Because compared to the world, out of 166 countries that was tested, the United States of America, European American students, there was only 12 countries did worse than the United States of America. So IQ, it has nothing to do with, that's a lot of game.
No. America is tied with at least 5 other countries for 9th in average IQ. And the 2 countries that are tied for number 1 in average IQ only have a 10-point greater average IQ than America. So it's really not how they're depicting it. It's just more bullshit.
So I guess you want to listen to the first part. He just told you those statistics. He probably read some different statistics. I read the statistics that you point out. But at the first part, he told you it's game. It's a bunch of game. You know what I'm saying? IQ is cultural based. You know what I'm saying? Now, you ain't got to believe that. You ain't got to believe that. The point is, it don't matter. You know what I'm saying? In the evaluation of the viability of a person or human being. But I'm going to tell you this about your statistical numbers. Now, you talk about America's numbers compared to the other numbers. All the other numbers that were above America were all people in that country who are from that country, original people of that land, make those numbers. In America, the vast majority of our IQ numbers, they don't come from you and people like you. Obviously, we can tell that you don't know shit. Definitely not people like me. I ain't taking no IQ tests. I never took any. So, I mean, I know I'm not part of the equation. Who taking IQ tests around here? And who's passing these IQ tests and getting high numbers for America here? They not Americans. I mean, they might be Americans by, some by birthright, some by, you know, I guess legal parameters. Maybe they, you know, got their green card, you know, took the test, passed the test, became a legal citizen. But if you do the math and you check into your statistics, I guarantee you'll find a high number of people who put our number wherever it is are people from other countries, or at least they originated from other countries. Their ancestor base, their parents came from another country. A lot of people from Asia. And I'm talking about the whole Asian area, you know what I'm saying? From India to China to Japan and all that type of stuff. Those are the motherfuckers that raise our IQ numbers. You know what I'm saying? It's not the regular Americans, the so-called Americans, the people who were here from the beginning. Their ancestors were here from the beginning, not from the beginning of the time that the white man came here and raped, robbed, and pillaged and took the land from the native man. You know what I'm saying? From that point on, those are not the numbers that they're counting. Not those people, not you. You know what I'm saying? Not me. You know, people who are coming here from different countries now. You know what I'm saying? This is a country of immigrants. You would think that the numbers would be higher. Right? But it don't really matter because, again, it's cultural based. It really don't mean anything. But if you want to lay your hat on that, that's cool. But what's your IQ numbers?
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
There's a new study from researchers at the University of Western Ontario which says measuring intelligence via IQ is simply a myth. This is interesting. This is the idea that that intelligence can be measured by a single number. The study was published in the journal Neuron, and it involved 100,000 participants around the world taking 12 cognitive tests and then a smaller sample undergoing a brain scan test simultaneously. And they said, when we looked at the data, the bottom line is the whole concept of IQ, or of you having a higher IQ than me, is a myth. There is no such thing as a single measure of IQ or a measure of general intelligence. Rather, the study determined there are 3 factors that combine to relate human intelligence or to have kind of a cognitive profile. The 3 factors are reasoning, short-term memory, and verbal ability.
The human brain is one of the most complex objects in the known universe. Can its abilities really be measured with a so-called IQ test? Hey everyone, Lacey Green here. Welcome back to D News. Last week I was talking about personality tests. This week I'm talking about IQ tests. Look guys, I'm just on this psychological test kick, so don't judge me. IQ tests are interesting to me because for over a century, some people have asserted that certain populations of people, like women, men, poor people, rich people, black people, white people, that they're better than others because they're more intelligent as a group. And that intelligence can be summed up in a single number, their intelligence quotient, or IQ. So let's back up a sec. The IQ test is not your average test. You can't study for it because it's supposed to measure things like how well you can reason or how well you can find relationships between seemingly unrelated things. The average score is 100. Lower than 70 indicates developmental delays, and above 130 indicates exceptional intelligence. But I really wonder about the whole quantifying intelligence thing. I mean, who's deciding what it means to be intelligent in the first place? And also, how on earth can we put a number on something that seems so big and abstract? For science and for lulz, I took Mensa's IQ test. They measured my smartness by asking things like, if you count to 100, how many 7s will you pass along the way? I got a 143 on the test, so FYI, I'm pretty much a genius, except not really. A Canadian study published in the journal Neuron examined over 100,000 people from across the world and found that the almighty IQ test is fundamentally flawed. The researchers suggest that these types of questions grossly oversimplify the abilities of the human brain. They analyzed the results of 46,000 people, had them take 12 additional cognitive tests, and ran MRI scans. They identified at least 3 components of intelligence: short-term memory, reasoning skills, and verbal ability, none of which were accurately assessed by the IQ test. Most people don't succeed at all 3 components, and each was affected by simple things like smoking, which reduced short-term memory, or gaming, which enhanced short-term memory. There were also gaping holes in the IQ test in terms of measuring creative intelligence, emotional and social intelligence, specific skills, and specialized knowledge, other things that maybe should be considered. What the IQ test did measure was how well Westerners might do in Western schools.
When people talk about smarts, intelligence quotient, or IQ,
always seems to come up. People love to bring up how Einstein had a genius-level IQ of 160, and to join Mensa, you need to have an IQ of at least 130. But is IQ even a good way to measure intelligence? Well, that depends on how you define intelligence. IQ scores may be a useful shorthand to talk about education strategies for big groups of people, like when discussing public policy. But IQ can be affected by a lot of factors, even things as subjective as your motivation while taking the test. The first sort of IQ test was invented by the French psychologist Alfred Binet in the early 1900s. A law in 1882 aimed at egalitarianism said that any healthy child had to go to school and learn the basics, like reading, writing, arithmetic, history, public policy, and the natural sciences. The law even included a special consideration for children with disabilities, like deafness or blindness. But the French government acknowledged that not every kid would be able to keep up with a normal curriculum, for lots of possible reasons. So Binet and other psychologists were commissioned to create a standardized test to measure how different kids handled their schoolwork. Along with Théodore Simon, Binet developed the Binet-Simon test, in which children would answer a series of questions until they couldn't anymore. That way, kids could be grouped in classes with students with similar scores, instead of relying on their age or the subjective judgments of teachers. In the next decade or so, this scale was revised for use with both kids and adults and renamed the Stanford-Binet Intelligence Scales. This popular IQ test is still used today, along with other standardized tests that are meant to measure learning ability, sometimes defined as how quickly and easily we learn new things. On early versions of the test, IQ was calculated by taking a person's score on a standardized test, dividing it by their chronological age, and then multiplying the result by 100. In more modern versions, you're basically ranked against other test takers. The scores of a group of people are scaled so that 100 is the average, and your IQ score is determined based on where you are in relation to that average. But here's the thing, whether or not IQ tests actually measure your intelligence depends on how you're defining intelligence. In simple definitions, intelligence is the ability to learn new things or adapt to new situations. But the definition can also include the ability to use logic or reason or to think abstractly. These definitions are all focused on intellectual capacity, which is how intelligence is defined by the American Psychological Association. And they don't include other kinds of intelligence, like social or emotional intelligence, or things like creativity or self-awareness. The Stanford-Binet test, for instance, focuses on testing 5 main categories of information: baseline knowledge, basic mathematics, visualizing objects in space, working memory, and fluid reasoning, or the ability to solve new problems. So depending on what you're trying to understand about someone, IQ tests might be useful, or they might be a waste of time. It turns out that your IQ score can be affected by a lot of different things, and because intelligence is so complex, we're not sure how strongly different factors might affect it. There's some evidence that says cognitive abilities are somewhat heritable, meaning there might be some kind of genetic component to IQ, but it's not that simple. Recent studies have shown that IQ tests are affected by motivation. For example, one 2011 meta-analysis found that people who are offered cash if they do well on an IQ test scored higher than people who weren't offered anything, like up to 20 points higher for just a $10 reward. That is a huge effect. And we know that motivation can play a role in other things, like your grades and your career path, that could be wrongly chalked up to just an IQ score. IQ also seems to be affected by environmental factors. Cultural values can influence your IQ scores. For example, a kid who grows up in a community that prizes storytelling might do better on verbal sections of the test, or problems that require you to remember and reuse information. How much education you get and the quality of that education may have an effect too. Kids who miss school because it's hard for them to get there, or who attend schools without many resources, tend to score lower than their peers. Even your family environment can affect your IQ, like whether you grow up in a low-income household or whether you experience a lot of trauma as a kid. So like a lot of things, IQ seems to result from a mix of nature and nurture. There are just so many factors that affect your learning ability as you grow up, from the environment you develop in before you're born to things like education opportunities and family dynamics. But psychologists seem to agree that one thing that seems to help people with learning and academic achievement is thinking about intelligence as a thing that can change. So IQ tests aren't anywhere near perfect or comprehensive, but they can help us predict how people might learn in the near future, which can make a difference in the support they receive. For instance, IQ scores can affect diagnosis of intellectual disability, which can inform public policy about education programs to support different students. It's understandable why it's valuable to have a standard way to sort of measure intelligence, like when it comes to making these general policy decisions. But it's also easy to see why IQ tests have been surrounded in controversy too. There's a lot we don't understand about intelligence, and a lot that an IQ score can't tell us about a person or groups of people. So while IQ can be a useful shorthand in some cases, it is not something that is set in stone, and do not let a number define you.
Wake your ass up.
And it was through the IQ test, which is the #1 weapon of special education. Which is the #1 weapon of special education.
They've weaponized special education. My God, when will these bastards be stopped? The tards have gone nuclear.
I had a case in Philadelphia this past summer, right here. Some white lawyers asked me to come in and participate in the case. Black boy, 8th grade, diagnosed as mentally retarded. I evaluated the brother, found out he was never mentally retarded. But when I looked into the previous IQ tests that were given, they misinterpreted the data.
What is the significance of white lawyers? Like, what is that? What are you trying to get at? I really don't think this person should be evaluating the intellect of children. I just don't think someone who believes that special education is weaponized, that thinks it's a fucking weapon, should be around children. I just don't think he should be looked at as any kind of educator, or just, it just seems a little fucked.
Yeah, good that we don't give a fuck about what you think. But yeah, that's the way we see it. It's the weaponization of special education and education as a whole. But weaponization doesn't mean, I don't know what the fuck you assuming it means, but it basically just means that it's being used against us. Okay? That's the weaponization. And you don't have to believe it. Once again, I tell you, we rely on different information than you do. Open up your mind and do some more research.
And the other thing is that our educators can't decide on what is the history. That's a problem. If you get 10 of them in here in a room, all 10 of them will have a lot of differences about where the civilization started, what we did, who did it, and where.
Maybe they can't decide because you're full of fucking shit. Wow. This movie is a complete piece of shit. It's full of pseudo-intellectual ramblings and is either made by a con artist or...
I guess we're at the end here. And this video you made is a piece of shit. You know what I'm saying? It's full of unintellectual bullshit. Alright, so let's wrap this shit up. I'm glad to be done with your ass. Look, you don't have to believe none of this shit in this video. And you have a right to make your video. I just was expecting a little bit more when I saw the title of your video, and then when I started looking at it, I was expecting like some deep insight or something, like you figured some shit out that we didn't know. I was actually listening with the intent of learning something. You know what I'm saying? But I think you just trying to be a comedian or something like that. I don't know. But you wasn't funny. It wasn't funny. You didn't have anything to say of value. Nothing of value on any point that they made. You know what I'm saying? So I hope you took that information that I gave you, and that's why I gave you all information from white motherfuckers, telling you the exact same thing that the motherfuckers on the Hidden Color series is telling you. You know what I'm saying? Except your true history, which is black history, which is world history. And I'll leave you with this question, brother. It's a question I'm going to ask you, and I hope you can put some thought into it. So the Hidden Color series is all predicated on the fact that they're trying to let black people, African Americans, Africans, people, melanated people of the planet, the original people of the planet, who they are, their true history, where they came from. You know what I'm saying? Which will help us, you know, guide our direction and where we want to go. But I ask you as a white man, where did you come from? When, where, and how did the white race develop? When did you come to be? Not you individually, but when did your people come to be? We know when we came. We know that we were the first people here. Now, nobody knows when it all started and how it all started. People has theories, you know, evolutionary theories and shit like that. They're all theories. I'm definitely not a Darwin dude, so I don't follow that particular theory. I'm pretty sure you probably do. So I'm assuming you believe you're a caveman who is a cousin of a monkey, a cousin of an ape. You know what I'm saying? If you believe in the Darwin theory. But no matter what you believe, ask yourself that question. Where do you come from? And I bet you if you do some real research, you'll find that the Darwin theory don't answer your question. It doesn't. You'll find that no matter which variation or theory that you prescribe to on the understanding on where white people come from, ultimately you'll run into one reality. You came from us. You know what I'm saying? Whatever way you look at it, you came from us because you were the last people on the spectrum of human development to develop. There were black, then there were brown, then there was red and yellow people, and then came you and your people. But how did you get here? When did you get here? What happened? You know? You ask yourself that question and focus on that. Don't worry about what the fuck we doing. We got our history. Now, peace. Oh, I forgot one other thing. Don't forget.
We were kings and shit. Space gods and shit. Wake your ass up.